Which part of the world you all joining us from today? Welcome to the podcast Below the Belt. So privileged to have you guys joining us. And some of you are always early, like Beatrice Selby and is it Chisel Chipper 68 joining us on YouTube. Damian James, and we see you as well, JG. Damian James, JG, Chisel Chipper 68, Beatrice Selby, already joining us via YouTube. The first below the belt today, folks. Who vex lose? Welcome to our international podcast, guys. Below the belt, and we say again and again, who vex? Who vex lose, guys? How are things where you are joining us from? How things we are there? How things we are there? So glad that so many of you guys can join us today. So tremendously privileged that all of you are here with us. Patricia Gravesandi is in the podcast today. I see Rowena Williams is here as well. William Koja is joining us from Toronto. Claire Alexis Chomley Richmond. Folks, all as one person, Claire Alexis Chomley Richmond. One person. Rashley Ford is here too. June Chase is here. Margaret Nelson is here. Andrea McDouble is here. Mark Alban is here. Maureen Coppin Williams is here as well. I was going through some of the comments after the program last evening, and one of the persons who commented seemed to be a little upset that we call people names every single time we run the program. But that's how we maintain our community here on the podcast. That's how we maintain our community below the belt. And what the person was saying that what was of interest to me is that we call one set of name all the time. Folks, believe it or not, these are the people who keep commenting. And so as persons comment, we see the names and we give them a shout out. So if you want your name to call, maybe you can put your name in the make a comment, and we'll see your name hopefully, and we give you a shout out. So don't feel bad. It's one set of name. Maybe it's one set of people commenting, right? But this is our own thing. This is our own thing. We like to recognize the people who tune in daily to our program, and especially those who comment ever so often. If you're watching and you don't comment, we don't know you're watching. We might see hundreds of persons watching because that's how the software is set up for us to see how many persons are viewing us. But we cannot see the names of the persons who are viewing us. If you don't make a comment, wherever you're picking up the broadcast from, then we don't see who watching us. So we're seeing George Annan because George has made a comment. We're seeing Wilton Blue and Ricardo Rodriguez because they've commented, and we're seeing those names. Desiree Smart Felix and Colin Sandy and all the other folks. So if it sounds as those one set of names we're calling all the time, it's because those are the folks who are always engaging us or engaging each other in the comment section. Folks like Yonette Lincott and Melinda McKenzie and Anesta Abridge, Wilton Blue, Carol Jacobs. Those are the folks who are always out here. Who are always out here. So folks, forgive us, but this is our own little thing, and we don't think we're going to trade it up just yet. We love to give our viewers, our listeners, a shout out because they make the program what it is. If our viewers and listeners don't show up, we're only talking to ourselves, right? There's an adage that if you are leading and nobody following you, you're just going for a walk. That's Dr. John Maxwell. If you are leading and nobody following you, you're just going for a walk. Good. So we are privileged that we have folks who tune in from around the world on a daily basis. Folks, we got a good problem. We have a good problem. Some people, some ministers in this country, we see some programs, some ministers, 3 ministers on a program and 40 people watching them. We got a good problem. We got hundreds of people tuning into us. Good problem. You ever hear an oxymoron like that? It's a good problem. Hundreds of people tune into our podcast daily. And we're so privileged. You tell me we can give a couple of them a shout out. I think there's a small price to pay. And Calvin, good to see you there. Rhonda Ferguson, good to see you as well. Joylyn Cook, Pamela Sanchari, good to see you. Dawn Barnes, good to see you. Carl Fordyce, good to see you as well. Rusham Kino, good to see you. Rusham Kino Waldron. I frightened the Waldrons, all of them is some Tantarians. Shellon Kingston, good to see you, Shellon. Good to see you, all of you fantastic, beautiful, fantastic folks. Wherever you're joining us from, whichever page on Facebook You all are picking us up from. Colin Alexander, whichever page you guys are picking us up from, whether it's YouTube, it's WhatsApp because you've got the link there. It's uh, Twitter, it's Facebook. Guys, we want to see those emojis. We want to see those shares. We want to see your comments as well. So we can give you all some of y'all a shout out. Who vets lose? Welcome below the belt, folks, to our international podcast. We're continuing our discussion from last evening. And today we're going to have with us the one and only Christopher Jones is going to be joining us, the opposition chief whip, period. He's my chief whip. And Randolph Critchlow, the honorable, he's counselor, influencer, a counselor from the Region Democratic Council, Region 4, influencer and a popular host of the program. The Rush comes over in the afternoon on all of our social media pages as well. Privileged to have them with us this morning. And in very short order, guys, we're going to be talking about the Prime Minister's Mark Phillips recording that we published yesterday. Who's responsible? Who responsible for Kashif and Shanghai Futsal Fiasco? Who is responsible for the Kashif and Shanghai Futsal Fiasco? That super spreader that occurred over the weekend and even had some events occurring last week. And that is what we're going to be examining here on the program today. But first, folks, we always got a couple of housekeeping matter, so we have to contend with. Always got a couple of housekeeping matters we got to contend with. Shellon Kingston, Colin Alexander, Diane Jones, and all the other folks joining us across social media. Paul, 68, joining us from New York City. He says it is freezing in New York City, but they are tuned in. I am certain Randy and Christopher are happy to be where they are in the tropics and not freezing. At least I think they are in the tropics. You could be you could move from the tropics to freezing in under 5 hours. If you got a good pilot, in under 5 hours, Wendy Fraser, you can move from tropics to freezing. Anthony Hudson, we see you out there. Glennis Mingo Byrne, we see you out there. Audrey Ward, Yonette Lincott, we see you as well. Vashti Magnot from Waterloo, Canada, joining us. Good afternoon, Vashti. Good to see all of you fantastic folk. Carl Stain Damon, good to see you, Carl. Audrey Ward from the British Virgin Islands, good to see you, Audrey. And no doubt it's beautiful weather where you are. No snow in the British Virgin Islands, of course. O'Neill, Vanessa, Yonette, good to see you. I think also joining us from New York City. O'Neill, Vanessa, Yonette is asking us to send some sunshine to New York City. And Bentley Edwards is telling us it's 18 degrees in New York City. My God, you see, this is just a tease, folks. Don't take me seriously. The good book says he fixed the bungs of rehabilitation, but some of y'all got all the bungs. So y'all freezing, y'all tail off now. But good to have you guys wherever from around the world you guys are picking up our broadcast. We are so privileged to have each and every one of you, hundreds of you, already tuned into the broadcast. And as I said, we're going to have with us in very short order the opposition chief whip member of parliament, the Honorable Christopher Jones, the Honorable Randolph Critchlow, councillor from Region 4, Regional Democratic Council Region 4, and also host of The Rush. They're both going to be with us shortly, guys. But the weather, let me show off on some of y'all now. Some of y'all who in that cold, that freezing cold, the weather at our end is 27 degrees. 27 degrees outside, guys. As a matter of fact, to be more accurate, it's 33 degrees outside. And weather.com is telling us there's a 3% chance it's going to rain this afternoon. So it's not going to rain. It's not going to rain. Believe it or not, it's not going to rain. It's a 33 degrees outside. That's fantastic weather. Came through the city on my way to the studio. It's fantastic, beautiful weather outside. It's not too hot. It's just right to be outside transacting business. And a couple of things we're following as we get into the program is a Fire Nation, we tell y'all. We tell y'all on these programs, giving you all the valid and credible information. It's a Fire Nation we have. Just last evening, you had a fire on Smythe Street, the old GRA building. They said the building was demolished and some of the rubble caught on fire. It's a miracle. Miracles happening every day in this country. Miracles happening every day in this country. So the GRA building, the old GRA building on Smythe Street, just combusted last evening. And then we're following information out of, I think, Region 6 that suggests the Ansel McCall building in Region 6 caught on fire last evening as well. It's a fire nation we got. Folks with young kids might understand that better, but if you follow some of these cartoons or so on, there's one my sons watch all the time. The Avatar, and they're competing. Well, I would say teams in Avatar. One of them is the Fire Nation. It's a Fire Nation we got here. It's a Fire Nation. So, but we were made to understand that the authorities, the fire service, responded promptly to the GRA fire and the one two at the Ansel McCall building in Region 6. I think it's Region 6. I could be off a region or two, but I think it's Region 6. Some folks from Linden are very concerned that they do not have sufficient testing sites in Linden. And they're concerned that, a lot of Lindeners seem to be coming down with COVID-19. They want to know if something wrong with the tests. And folks are complaining that in the mining town, Region 10, Linden, in the mining town there, that there's only one testing site, and it's Wismore Hospital, according to information that we have here. It's only one testing site, and then all the tests seems to be coming back positive. So folks are questioning whether something wrong with the test. Folks, there's something moving wrong out there. We think it's Omicron. We think it's Omicron that's moving wrong out there. As a matter of fact, some additional information we have, internationally, the BBC is reporting that half of Europe to be infected with Omicron within 2 weeks. And this is according to the World Health Organization. Half of Europe. Folks, that's millions of people. We got 750,000 since I born. And I got left now. 750,000. So you can imagine we're going to be overrun. And there is strong evidence to support that is what is moving here. Omicron, spreading faster than the COVID-19, the substantive virus as we know it. Right? Spreading very, very fast. And with all of that happening, we're hearing that the regional agriculture coordinator in Region 6, this man apparently is, or this person, this individual is breaching a lot of COVID-19 guidelines, and residents, they are very concerned. Right? So we're following that as well, folks. We gotta practice all the COVID-19 protocols that are in place for your health and your safety, that of your friends, family, loved ones. I told you guys yesterday, I'm operating, I think, a quarter of my quarter tank right now. Came down with something over the weekend. Lots of my colleagues, I'm hearing similar reports from them as well. But that being said, we want to turn our attention now to the Kashif and Shanghai Futsal Fiasco that occurred over the weekend. We saw hundreds of persons at the Cliff Anderson Sports Club, obviously not observing COVID-19 protocols at that football tournament there. And we were made to understand that Kashif Mohammed, one of the partners in the Kashif and Shanghai duo, had a big backyard party by your house as part of this competition, what have you. Hundreds of persons, and we got the video evidence to support what we're saying, and we have posted it on our social media pages. Hundreds of persons obviously not enforcing or not observing COVID-19 regulations, protocols, and guidelines. And what is even more surprising, that Kashif Mohammed is the director of sports. Even more shocking. And it seems to us that this has been sanctioned by the government. The government heavily supported this. At least this was the contention between private sector members who had a very heated conversation with the Prime Minister quite recently. We're going to play that for you just after we invite our guests. And it's my privilege to invite with us this evening, with us today rather, look how far I gone, till the evening. It's my privilege to have with us today the opposition chief whip, as I said, the chief whip period, Christopher Jones, the Honorable, and to have with us also the Honorable Randolph Critchlow. He's councillor out of the Regional Democratic Council Region number 4, and he's the host of the popular afternoon show, The Rush. Gentlemen, welcome. Below the belt. Who vex lose? Welcome, guys. Partners.
Good day, Sharon. Good day to your viewers, your listeners, rather.
Yes. Good day. How are you guys doing? Talk to me.
Well, after listening to the folks out in New York who are braving the weather, We consider ourselves very lucky and privileged to be in this part of the globe. In fact, just earlier today, I had to roll up the windows in the car and put on the AC because it's so hot.
Oh
To
wow.
listen to them talking about how cold. My God,
We are lucky. We are really blessed in this part of the world. Weather-wise, let me be specific. Weather-wise,
weather-wise,
because we pumping a lot of oil, Chris, but we ain't feeling it.
you're feeling it. You're feeling it.
We pumping, but we ain't feeling it. So we showing off the weather on you guys. We can't show off the money. We understand y'all got more money than we in the diaspora, but we can at least boast about the weather.
And especially those folks who are in the diaspora who are from places like FC Cribbo, they would be familiar with the Creole term, paisanaba. You know, paisanaba.
Interpret that for us. That's new to me too. So,
Money in there, money in there.
oh, I see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Underscore
paisanaba.
bold and put in red. Randy, how are you doing at your end?
I'm good, I'm good. I'm good, Sharon. As I was telling you before coming on, I was making some tuna sandwich.
I continue
But
to
I'm good.
ask. I continue to ask Randy all the time, Chris, who is sleeping with in this government? How is this man affording tuna? Fish expensive now. This man fixing himself a tuna sandwich, He's not even having tuna as a main course, as a sandwich. Nice time by Randy. Nice time.
Like some of us who attempted to get planted in an eggs this morning.
I'm telling you, plantain is a distant memory. I probably haven't had it in a long time. It's a distant memory. I saving up right now for plantain for my birthday. Plantain and fish.
You know, you just Sunday, going through the border market area, and when you were walking through the market, that's when the reality of the gravity of the situation steps in at you, Sherrod. Literally, the vendors, you go to buy vendors, they're selling half pounds. Nobody buying 4 pounds, 6 pounds because they simply can't afford it. Plus, you're seeing the persons who have actually made purchases. It's just like one little plastic bag they're going up with. Unlike before time when you got two, three bags slinging on with your little basket and so when you go to the market on Sundays, it is a completely different situation. Guyanese just don't have the spending power at this time to purchase the basic commodity. They can't feed themselves.
Yep. And I know. Welcome Tina Chung. We see you there, Tina Chung, Beatrice Selby, and all you other folks. We see you guys. We see you. I know, Chris, you want to say it. Randy, you want to say it neither. But things are better under Granger. we think things a little rough. You understand? Because we were right sizing not only the sugar industry, but we were right sizing the economy. And we thought things a little thing and so on. Them boys used to say money and circulating, but oh my God, Lado, be careful what you wish for. Things under them boys
Absolutely.
tight.
Yep,
Things
yep,
under
That
them
is
yep.
boys
true.
tight.
That is true. You know the saying. You don't know what you had on. You don't know what you have until you had it,
Mm-hmm.
and that is part
Mm-hmm.
of the reality now. From the public servants to
Mm-hmm.
people who have issues with security and the
Mm-hmm.
security of the family and so forth, right throughout it. The
Mm-hmm.
cries are very loud. I think Granger's a most popular president at this time than he was during his administration.
Yep. It's only in comparison, It's only when you look back sometimes you could realize, you don't really had a bad upbringing, You don't really had a bad life. You think things are tough. But when you compare to where you then now, to where you went, oh my God, you really went in the promised land. Right? Now it's back to Egypt. Back to Egypt. That's what we did. Randy, how the pot come in, my brother? I make a spin by you.
As I already finished it, pot, Sharon. I finished it, but it's no pot. It was small things. Small
Yes, the
things.
sandwich, no? Yes, sir.
Yeah, small things.
My lord.
But Sharon, it's interesting that we're looking at comparisons, right? Because this is a regime that likes to compare and they like to do this PR thing about what they are doing in comparison to what the AP and UAFC did. But they have failed to tell the people, especially when it comes to the Natural Resource Fund, what they are doing as opposed to what the AP and UAFC did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? They conveniently have decided not to make that comparison in terms of transparency and oversight and all these things. And it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. And I am, as a Guyanese looking on, I am hoping that the people of Guyana see through what is really happening with this government and the fact that, in over 500 or something days, the average Guyanese can't see any significant improvement in their lives by these economic gurus.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right?
Right on. Yep.
It's
And
a sad situation.
on that same note, I was telling MP Jones, and folks like Tina Chung would know this. At least on the Granger, we had some salary increases every year. Now it's like somebody said, is the more oil we pump, is the more things getting worse. And Tina Chung would know this. When you pump, you're supposed to feel something, but we pumping oil, but we ain't feeling nothing. We unfeel it. There's some people saying, it seems to be a no-brainer. Let me stop pump oil. Maybe things will get better. It seems the more oil discoveries we hear of every day, the less and less people are being able to benefit. Being feeling that in we pocket is only some people apparently, like Kashif and Shanghai. Right? And we pointed out, our very own German Figuera wrote a very stinging statement, released that statement just over the weekend concerning what transpired there with that football competition and how we love that people can make money, you can organize these events and what have you. But the fact that you are going to breach COVID protocol and the fact that the administration can decide, money got for make over the health of citizens and over the preservation of human life. This doesn't really suggest that these people care at all, but they can come next week and say, we care, right? They can come next week and say, we care. And then they're going to fight down Region 10 for having a very slow vaccination rate when they're spreading the most COVID. It's their events. The Ministry of Housing goes someplace, meet with hundreds of folks. You don't got no time with COVID regulation. And then you come and fight down people that you got to be vaccinated when y'all having the most massive super spreaders. But it was the conversation between the Prime Minister and some folks from the private sector. Jerry Govaya, Ramesh Duku, and Kit Nascimento. That was the shocker yesterday. And we're going to play part of that. Guys?
Sure, no problem. Then we'll talk about it after.
Fantastic. So let's take that recording that was published yesterday. Again, this is the installed Prime Minister Mark Phillips having a conversation with Kit Nascimento, who was wailing into him about the irresponsibility of the government. So, on this note, respect and manners, Kit, even Ramesh Duku, who I believe was the former chairman of the private sector at one point, was trying to get some clarity from the Prime Minister what is happening here and what systems we're putting in place. Mark, I want to deal with that. Mark, them just want to move on. And then you had this jagabat, National Security Advisor, Jerry Govaya, who's supposed to be looking after the interests of the citizens, but really and truly, he's a private businessman, and those interests is what trumped. You can hear him at the very end. Folks, take a listen to what transpired in that conversation on this very Shanghai and Kashif and Shanghai Futsal Fiasco issue.
I want to put things in order, in a correct perspective. There are weddings, there are other social activities that took place in this country where individuals, the organizers, wrote for permission. They were granted permission with the understanding that they adhere to certain protocols. The Kashif and Shanghai football tournament was one of many such activities that we granted permission. The reality and the fact is, while the one over the river at Lenora, we hadn't so many complaints about. This one, the futsal, we had the complaints about. The organizers must take responsibility for that, yes.
And Prime Minister.
Moving forward, we can spend a long time trying to do a post-mortem on this. But in the same breath, if this task force
shut down all activities that are sports related, shut down all activities that are entertainment related, like the cinemas, as you claim, that may not be checking for the vaccines. We're gonna have an uproar from the same private sector. This is a task all of us are involved in. When things go wrong, I am not gonna preside over any, pointing of fingers at anybody. All of us are involved. I said that before, and all of us are consumed. Yes, the Kashif and Shanghai, they failed us all. And we have to take corrective action.
Let me explain, Prime Minister, why
Comrade, we have to move forward.
Prime Minister, in the interest of your next meeting,
spend a long time doing a postmortem. We can have a special meeting for this. We can have a special meeting to deal with the Kashif and Shanghai.
I need to explain, Prime Minister, with your permission, why I called it a government event. It was
Why
called.
you call it a government event?
Yes, why?
I'm trying to tell you that I don't
why.
You don't need to, because was not a government event.
It was
I already
openly
said that.
and actively
What you
supported
were trying to do,
by the Minister
on
of
a point of
Sport.
order, on a point of order, what you're trying to do is to argue and debate as to why you were saying to the government. I already said that it was not a government event.
I agree with you, it was not a government event. It was not a government event.
Right. The government event, but it was
the organizers, they failed us. They failed us. We allowed this football to happen based on the understanding that they follow the guidelines, they follow the rules.
So, Prime Minister,
they did not, and we have to sanction them.
Yeah.
But then we can't spend a whole hours discussing it as to whether or not it was a government event. Come on, let's move on.
And openly supported, Prime Minister, by the Minister of Sport.
And don't let us go there. Don't let us go there, kid.
Yeah.
Let us
Prime Minister,
to be very objective. Let us accept that things went wrong. I am not going to preside over pointing fingers at people here. We need to fix it. Let us focus our energies on fixing what went wrong.
Yes, Prime Minister, and that brings on my next question. What are the mitigating measures that we're putting in place to ensure that it doesn't happen again, and to ensure that, the COVID measures are not totally, disrespected?
Ramesh, as I said, we can have a special meeting. We can call the organizers of that event, and we can have a special meeting where we could do the postmortem, right? And come up with a set of measures as we move forward. But for the purpose of today's meeting, I think we have spent a lot of time on dealing with this, and we need to move on. We need to move on.
Yeah.
We agree, all of us agree that it's been bad, and all of us.
You have a population. Unless you put soldiers with guns, when you start having 5,000, even on the sea ball, you see it. And it don't matter how you try to do moral suasion. I feel sorry for the organizers. When you have 5,000 people search forward, unless you have soldiers with guns and they can there with a tear gas, we run the risk. But you know what? If we cannot shut down.
Yep, that's it, folks. That's the recording. And the Prime Minister talked there about basically holding the organizers accountable, but that didn't seem to take precedent in this meeting. Some other time we go hold them accountable. Some other time down the road. But we have to move on.
Yep.
Guys,
Sharon, if I can jump in here.
Go right ahead.
What we saw there, or what we listened to, was just a peek behind the curtain of PVP incompetence, their corruption and cover-up. That's how I see it. Just a peek into
I love
because,
that. Incompetence, corruption, and cover-up.
For example, Sharon, Mark Phillips saying, look, the organizers must be held responsible. But the reality is the organizers are members of your government.
Yep.
Organizers are members of your government. Your director of sport, your minister of sport, these are the people behind this. So How are you holding them responsible? Speaking out of both sides of your mouth, we need to hold them responsible, or we can't point fingers. How is it you're going to hold them responsible if you don't point them
Is
out
a
and say
two-mounted
X, Y, Z,
snake.
you are responsible? Huh? So Mark is basically running point for the government on this task force. He is the bag man. He's the cover-up guy. So he got to go and tell the private sector people, and kudos to Kit Nascimento, who was trying to push and say, look, but this is your government who's doing this.
Yep. And he don't want to point fingers. He wants to hold people responsible. But if you don't get to the root, how are you going to find out how the thing went wrong? And if fingers got to point, fingers got to point. Right? But again, Randy, you characterize it well. It's a peek behind the curtain. They are not being led by policies, you know. COVID policy, out the window, is how we feel. If we friend do it, they could pass. We can talk about penalty and so on later on, if any penalty at all. Right? If it's we friend. But when it's other people, you understand me, we throw the whole book at them. Friends and family is the PPP. Go right ahead, guys.
Exactly. You know, Sherrod, let me quickly for your listeners just put something into perspective on what people must understand as well. And the points made by Randy I agree with, because essentially the Kashif and Shanghai organization is part and parcel of the PPP government. Kashif Mohammed is the chairman of the National Sports Commission, of which has the authority over all of the sports facilities in this country. I want to remind people that last weekend futsal finals that we saw was the third in three major events that were had by Kashif and Shanghai and the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport and the Minister Charles Ramson. The weekend leading into year end, there was the football finals, which was had at Leonora. The advantage that the COVID protocols had at that time is the location prohibited persons from reaching the venue. So you didn't have a large crowd there. As well, it was an open air event. Before this last weekend, there was the futsal semi-finals, which was had at the said sports hall, which was overcrowded because you had four major teams, such as Goal is Money, Sparta, Leopold Street, and Ben Street participated in the semi-final. Now, anyone who knows futsal in this country knows that anytime you have any one of those teams participating in any futsal final, it is expected that hundreds of thousands of people will turn out to watch them play. So the semi-finals, which was had before the last weekend at the said sports hall, was overcrowded. Then you had the two finals, which included Sparta, which comes out of Tugville, which is my community. And anybody knows that once Sparta is going to represent Tugville, we turn out in our numbers. You could have passed on home stretch during Saturday evening. And the mere fact that you saw double lane parking on the entire home stretch that stretches all the way to Mandela Avenue where the barbecue grill place is at, you know that the sports hall is overcrowded. Now, as former director of sports, I can tell you that the sports hall has a capacity of 2,200 people. The crowd that I saw there exceed over 4,000 persons inside. The sports hall is noted for being a hot box for any sports activity. We place ventilation fans and so forth, extractor fan, and it still is not sufficient to ventilate that place how it's so hot. And when you have crowds stretch it over into the 4,000s, you can't breathe. So therefore, it provides no opportunity for anyone to wear a face mask. You have to remove your mask if you want to breathe. Now, anyone knowing football, tournament, or any sports activity is that you have crowds who are cheering for their respective team. So it's loud shouting, screaming, and shout. When you speak about saliva being thrown around the place and so forth, plus the sports art, it's a warm environment, an ideal incubator. Now, when you talk about the COVID variants that are in Guyana, I am pretty certain that inside the sports hall last Saturday night, there was the Delta variant and there was the Omicron variant. And you saw the CDC report now that you have a collab between Delta and Omicron, which they call it Delta Cron. All of that, I am certain, was transmitted between the sports hall. Now, given that you had approximately 4,500 persons crammed into the sports hall, and they left the sports hall that night, and they went home to their homes, of let's say each one of their home have, let's say minimum 4 persons inside. That is 4,500 times 4. And then a lot of those persons from the Saturday night event went out to the seawalls on Sunday. And then they mingled with persons who just went out there with their family to get some breeze. And then those same persons went into the workforce between Monday, today, Tuesday, and tomorrow, Wednesday, which is all part of the incubation period for COVID-19 and these Delta and the Omicron variant. I give you, by this weekend, you will see the numbers of infected cases being quadrupled as a result of that event that was had at the sports hall. Now, let me put into perspective again in terms of the futsal finals and the football finals being part of the PPP's government program, because it is a National Sports Commission and the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports sanctioned event. And that is how the permission was granted by the COVID task force, because they know it's a ministry's exercise. It is a ministry's event. It is sponsored by the ministry. It is at one of the ministry's location. The Minister of Culture, Youth and Sports was there. Bishop Juan Edgil was there. The chairman of the National Sports Commission, Kashif was there at the event. It was a government event. And this speaks to, you talk about corruption, nepotism, cronyism, and so forth, part of the PDP. This is part of what we talk about, because the rules of COVID-19 applies for certain people. I remind your listeners, Sharon, that the same COVID task force sent heavily armed police and soldiers in Melanie to James Bond's
Correct.
venue,
Mm-hmm.
cigar and cognac at 10 o'clock in the night when the COVID, the curfew was 12 o'clock.
Yep.
10 o'clock.
Several times.
Exactly, several times to shut down his event, which only attract a couple hundred people. I mean, that venue can't hold more than 400 people. And they went there and shut that down. Now, I passed at the sports hall Saturday night. And I tell you, this is early in the evening at about 8:30. And when you see the number of cars that are parked there, you know for certain you have overcrowded. It was expected that the COVID-19 task force and this so-called caring PPP government would have sent the police or the task force there to either stop the event or have the organizers restrict any additional persons from entering the event. That is what happened. On the road, you had traffic ranks, including khaki clothes police officers who were directing traffic on the road. This is to tell you the magnitude of this government event, that the police force is out and numbers directing traffic flow. But nobody at that time, including the task force, saw it best to stop the organizers or restrict the entry of additional people into the venue, and with a view of asking some persons to leave the venue or shutting the venue down altogether. Altogether. They can't run from this. And again, as we said, this is how PPP operates. The rules applies for certain people, and the rule does not apply for certain people. And this is again another manifestation of that fact of how the People's Progressive Party civic govern this country.
Correct. And in that, the question is there whether a lot of conflict of interest is operating here, because you have Kashif Mohammed, who you said is the chairman of the National Sports Commission. He's in charge of all of the sports facilities. That falls on his portfolio. And then he is also hosting events at these facilities. Government is sponsoring these events as well. So you got to employ the government who is using the government facilities for a private event and initiative, and the government sponsoring that on top of the bargain. This is a lot. It's not conflict of interest.
My good fellow, I thank you. I thank you for reminding me of that point as well. Conflict of interest. Because in order for any sport organization, federation, or association to get permission to use one of the government's venue, they have to write to the chairman of the National Sports Commission, which happens to be Kashif Mohammed.
Oh,
Now, here it is,
yes.
Kashif Mohammed is the chairman of the National Sports Commission. So Kashif Mohammed granted permission to himself to
So this
use
is
the sports hall.
the
And then in
Silal
additional,
syndrome all over again.
exactly. And in
You write
addition
to
to that,
yourself, I answer yourself.
exactly. And in addition to that, the Kashif Mohammed organization had to write to the director of sports seeking financial support for the Kashif and Shanghai Futsal tournament. And as the chairman of the board, that matter comes to you and the other members of the board. So, of course, you grant permission for the sports commission to
To
give you
yourself.
a sponsorship to yourself. So, Kashif Mohammed, part of the PDP's government, after consulting with himself, have granted himself sponsorship for the futsal tournament, has granted himself sponsorship to use the venue, and I'm pretty sure the venue was used free of cost. Free of cost. So when you, and we said it over and over, conflict of interest, rules operate for some and against the others. I take you back, Cheryl, to a few months ago when it was subject to correction. It was the Basketball Federation, the Basketball Association wanted to conduct training session at the Cliff Anderson Sports Hall so that they can prepare their team, which had to go to Suriname to represent Guyana at the basketball tournament. And the permission was not granted for for 14 men to go into the sports hall for practice football, practice basketball. Permission was not granted for 14 persons to go to the sports hall and ask them to practice, but was granted to a futsal semi and finals that was had with thousands of people gathered together.
And you know, just saying it, I think the unfairness, the inequity stands out to the average person. Randy.
Yeah, I was going to back up what Chris was saying there in terms of the inequity and the unfairness, because I know about 3 other federations who would have applied for permission to hold activities in the sports hall, and they were told, no uncertain terms, the COVID guidelines don't allow them to hold an event there. So it was surprising when you saw the sports hall filled capacity, an event that was organized, coming from an organization that the chairman of the sports commission is namesake. So, we are living in some strange time, Sher. Some strange time. As Chris would have mentioned, the police are running behind every and all little event, closing them down. Closing them down. Heavily armed people. And we have this sports hall filled with government officials in it. It is saying, do as I say, not as I do. Do as I say. It is unbelievable where we are in this country. And as I said, that recording just pulls back the veil a little bit behind the scenes, where you have a bunch of people who really do not care about the people of the country. And we don't need to get into that because we know they don't care about the people of the country. Their only concern is their private gain, their personal gain. And so you have behind the scenes, you have some people from the private sector saying, well, what's going on? And the prime minister come to play, like, man, do not let us go there. These were his words. Don't let us go there. When Kit Nascimento was saying to him, look, this thing was openly supported by the Minister of Sport. It's as if you can't talk about that, Kit. You can't talk about that. Whatever Ramson and the people madness are doing over there, don't call any name, don't point no finger. That is what is happening in this country. I was happy that Guyanese are actually getting an opportunity to see behind the curtain what is happening. This is what they are playing, politics with your health. They're playing business with your health. And so you as an individual got to take your own safety in hand. And that's another point. That's a whole other discussion.
But what stood out to me as well? Is the refrain, the Prime Minister insulting the national poet Martin Carter with that refrain, all are involved. I always say all are involved and all are consumed. He's quoting the national poet Martin Carter, who must be somersaulting in his grave by the 7 ponds.
Except Ramson
Right.
and the director of sports.
It really
They're not
means
involved.
it really means that y'all know what y'all sign up for. We in this together, good or bad. Y'all better shut y'all mouth and toe the line. That is what it really means.
Precisely.
Y'all know what y'all sign up for. Don't let me forget, the private sector commission had its own what you call them again? Not scrutineers, election scrutineers, observers
Observers.
at the 2020 elections. You remember they had one of them in particular named Galikan? Soon after the election finished, he was making a beeline to the States, and the US authorities picked him up. He was a wanted man in the US, and now is spending close to 15 years, if not more, behind bars. He was a member of the private sector commission and what do you call it? Not a qualified observer, accredited observer with the private sector commission. They got their own scams in there for deal with, you know. They got their own scams in there to deal with. So they have this pact with the devil. They have made a deal with the devil called the PPP. You understand? And now they're catching the tail. Fellas?
Mercy. Listen, I mean, just a few days ago, Sherrod, I recall seeing Irfan Ali on a hastily called press briefing to talk about COVID and the measures that are being put in place and all of that, and preventative measures and so forth. And then, of course, he made mention about the reopening of schools, which has come under sharp criticism from the Ghana Teachers Union, as parents and teachers of themselves. But yet they were told that, listen, you have to send your children to school. When in some schools like Christchurch, for example, when it was confirmed that a teacher was infected or several teachers were infected, and the teacher wanted to follow the protocol in terms of everyone going into isolation, shutting down the school. And it is alleged that you had Marcel Hudson of the Ministry of Education went there and verbally abused the teachers and they used the word that I was quoted as being attributed to him, damn with COVID. I don't give a damn about COVID. And that is the reality. What we're seeing here is that the PPP Civic want to give this show that everything is back to normal. And if it means hundreds of Guyanese will have to lose their lives to COVID-19, then so be it. I remind people that it was the same PPP when they, under the APNU government, when they announced that you had patient zero in this country. They said that it was a hoax. It was a hoax by the APNU AFC to remain in office. And then they had even set up their own shadow task force because
Correct.
they refused to participate in the APNU AFC task force, of which the AFC extended an arm inviting them to be part of the task force. And then, of course, when you had the ceremony at the National Cultural Center, where you had all of them, including Irfan Ali, all there seated, gathered closer together. And then we learned subsequently that several of the ministers were COVID positive. And they continue as business as usual. This PPP government, as we said time and time again, don't care about the well-being of the citizens of this country. They never did. Whether it's public servants and the wages and salary, whether it's people's health, they will see the numbers of COVID cases being rise on a daily basis, and they just don't give a damn. As long as they can write to the international community and say to them that, listen, we have a spike in COVID and we need financial assistance. And while those international organizations and countries continue to plug money and resources into this country, those monies are not going where they're supposed to go. That is the PPP. They will sell you to your deathbed in order to make money from some organization out there.
And
That
sell
is
the
reality.
bed out from under you to make money.
Exactly.
Sell the bed from out on there for make money. Money got for make. That's what them boys said. Randy, money got for make.
Yeah, sure. Sherrod, you know, I'm happy that Chris brought up the conversation about COVID and schools, because last night a teacher from St. Pius called me and she was very frustrated. She was, you know, trying to figure out what to do, who to call, because she's saying 5 teachers tested positive for COVID. and other children showing symptoms, and it's work like normal in St. Pius. She said she never thought that the day would come in this profession that she'll have to work out of those situations. She said that the HM of St. Pius seems to be running point for the ministry because she is suppressing the information. The teachers would have sent their positive COVID results in the school's WhatsApp group, and those teachers were being, it's as if HM wants to ignore that. Don't do any contact tracing. Don't remedy the situation. Tell everybody, if you're showing any real sign or symptoms, stay in school and teach. That is what teachers are being forced to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the role some of these HMs are playing. And it's frustrating the teachers. At this point in time, there are many teachers who really don't know where to turn. Mm-hmm. Because the HMs and the Ministry of Education seem not to care about their well-being, not care about children's well-being. Imagine 5 teachers from St. Pius. This is not me saying this. This is a teacher from St. Pius. And the 5 teachers test positive. They send the message, and the HM refuses to take any action. And I don't know. I mean, the Ministry of Education has their own messaging coming out from them and their own instructions from the minister that schools must continue. The teachers union called a one-day isolation day, but I believe more action needs to be taken. This situation is more serious than we actually thinking it is, because of course we know how transmissible the Omicron variant is. Right? Everybody getting it, and you can't come on television and tell people that all the schools are safe, and we know the schools aren't safe when you're having what we call super spreader events every day. And so I don't know what action the teachers union, I was looking at the news last night, shared, and in Chicago, the mayor was basically pleading with the teachers union because the teachers union over there got a little more power. They tell the teachers they aren't going to school in this surge, and the teachers stayed home. I am wondering how is it that those teachers who are feeling left in the cold because they don't want to engage in themselves, they don't want to engage in the students in school, but they don't know where to turn. The ministry doesn't have their back. And I don't know if the union is taking a strong enough stance on this.
But my thing is, why is there this need to show that everything is going nice when we know in our core being it is not? You see a headline that says 74% of 85% of the teachers turned out for school. I mean, what's that about? Right? Omicron is ripping and wreaking havoc in our society, and this the best the ministry could do is to go around and take some photographs and want to show, the status quo, everything is normal, everything normal under we administration, because we got things under control. And the police affected, the soldiers affected, teachers affected, every sector of this society affected by what is happening currently.
Yeah, the
Chris.
PVP say because they have lost control of COVID-19 in Guyana. There is no guardrails anymore. All of those guardrails are gone. The ministry of health in Guyana and the PPP government has lost control of COVID-19. That is the reality.
Agreed. They lost control and they give up. They lost control and they give up. That's what happening here.
That's right. So what they need to do now is give the impression that everything is normal. Everything is normal because they have there's nothing else they can do. They've lost control.
And we remind listeners, Chris, it's 3 ministers there, of health. 3 ministers. Ramsamy, Frank Anthony, and then you got Shaky, Barry Ramsaran, Minister Strip and Slap. 3 of them, and we overrun by COVID, overrun by Delta, overrun by Omicron, and it's the IHU in the backside now.
And you saw recently, we didn't even realize that Priya Manichan apparently is also a shadow minister of health, because she revealed that the teachers and students who were positive in schools, apparently they didn't contract it from in the school.
Oh, yes.
They contracted from community spread.
Yes, the
So Minister of
intensive
Health.
research that she did as Shadow Minister of Health.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, and
But
listen,
Sharon,
you know, the other part in terms of the teachers union, and I would say I don't need to defend the teachers union. The teachers union can defend themselves. But we spoke about the PPP and the dictatorial tendency of how they govern. They govern by threats, intimidation. They have to ensure that there is fear in the society. That is how the PPP rules. After the Ghana Teachers Union made the pronouncement about the isolation day on Monday, you had a address to the nation by the Minister of Labour, Joe Hamilton, where he sought to threaten the livelihood of the teachers, to threaten their wages and salaries and so forth. And if you listen to his tone and so forth, he said it well. So when you talk about fear in the society by this dictatorship that we have, and that's how dictators operate. You check the world over in states in which you have dictators in operation, that is how they operate. The minute they hear about protests or dissent from any quarters, you'll have these statements that people will be locked up, people will be charged, you will lose your job, wages and salaries will be cut, and all of that. It's the same thing. That is the PPP, a full-blown dictatorship we have operating in this country.
yeah,
Agreed.
agreed. I want to just point out before we wrap up.
Thanks, Randy. Great hit.
I want to point our listeners in the direction of the gross incompetence of Priya Malik Chan. Now, as a teacher in the system, I can tell you that I've been saying this since August 2020, that not to put things in place to help facilitate at-home learning or distance learning was the biggest mistake that the PPP made. So now you have over a year and a half in government. We have this new grade 7 students, Form 1 students coming into school now. These are children who are in primary school when COVID took a grip of the country and they did most of their common entrance online and some of them went in school. But they're in Form 1. Many of them are still online. Some of them are face-to-face. There was no plan put in place by Priya Malik Chan and the Ministry of Education to facilitate any distance learning with these children. No student was given a tablet. No student was given a laptop. No student, no parents. None of the parents were helped with their internet bill. But we still, now that we're in the midst of a surge, Priya Malik Chan and the PPP have not learned. In over a year and a half of COVID and schools closed, they have not learned anything. And they have failed to put anything in place to facilitate those children who will have to be home. That speaks of rank incompetence. It cannot make, I can't make any sense of that, Sharon.
Yep.
I can't. That nothing has been put in place for these students.
Yep.
And that tells me that you should not even be the Minister of Education if you can't see the basic need, that basic need of providing things to those children who will be stuck at home because of this.
Yep.
Or you tell me that you don't care. Got to be.
They have not learnt and then taken learning, as we say. They have not learnt, for those folks who verse in the English language, and then taken learning. The guy needs to understand it the other way. MP Christopher Jones, Opposition Chief Whip, and the Honorable Councillor Randolph Critchlow, host of the popular The Rush program in the afternoons. I want to thank you both for spending time below the belt today. Who vex Lowe's? Who vex these guys here? Y'all vex. Thanks, my brothers, for being here on the podcast with me and for bringing the depth to this discussion today. Thanks very much.
Most welcome, Sharon. Most welcome.
Thank you.
Folks, that's our program. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, if we do not go, we cannot come. It is expedient that we do so. Thanks for having the hundreds of you who joined the podcast from around the world, folks. We couldn't have asked for anything better. Thanks to each and every one of you. But before we go, guys, our quote for today: in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. In the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. We got a lot of one-eyed people around we, and the thing that's king. In the kingdom of the blind, Erasmus says, the one-eyed man is king. This proverb is one of several thousands. Yep, it's one of several thousands that the Renaissance scholar Erasmus translated from Greek to Latin in his seminal work. Adagia, where he also records an alternative version. This alternate version says, among the blind, the cross-eyed man is king. Among the blind, the cross-eyed man is king. This adage has a political meaning, according to this text I'm reading here, suggesting that a relative disadvantage can become a source of power over those who are even more disadvantaged. But the richness of the analogy affords a much closer, or rather a much wider scope of interpretation and application. As Erasmus himself commented, if the blind are taken to represent the uneducated, if they are taken to represent the uneducated, then from their perspective, one who is half educated is considered very learned. Erasmus wrote this in 1500, in the year 1500, folks. And as might as well, he wrote this yesterday. Right? In the kingdom of the blind, those who got one eye, we can interpret that to be they're very learned. There's a lot of one-eye men we got wrong way. The interpretation of the quote closes with this: while the general meaning of the proverb serves as a reminder that power is relative rather than absolute, the metaphorical meaning of one-eyed and cross-eyed also permits a further layer of significance in the political interpretation, warning against the dangers of an uneducated public being manipulated by bigoted demagogues. Moreover, as the proverb can meaningfully apply to any form of social organization that strongly relies on and rewards leadership, it has also extensive relevance throughout contemporary society. In the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Take down. That's our quote for today, and the meaning attributed to it. A lot of one-eyed people we got in this country, right? But in the kingdom of the blind, one-eyed man is king. And folks, we know that we're edifying ourselves every day so that we can see clearer, and we can see through both eyes. The good book tells us, now dimly we see. Now through a darkened glass, but then face to face. We edifying ourselves and we increasing ourselves every day. Guys, thanks for joining the broadcast, wherever you joined us from. In the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Take the y'all chest. Folks, we can't do these programs without you, and so we encourage you to come on board and partner with us. We're available via Cash App. We ask you guys to come on board and partner with us on a monthly basis via Cash App. Our Cash App handle is In the Ring 592, our affiliate program In the Ring. We use their platforms. In the Ring 592, that's the Cash App handle. It's a $ In the Ring 592. At PayPal, it's In the Ring 592 at gmail.com. At PayPal, it's in the ring 592 at gmail.com. We're available also via the MMG system. The MMG system, that's the local cash app, the Guyanese cash app. The MMG system, our number there is 627 6963, 627 6963. And guys, we are available via Western Union and available via MoneyGram as well. Folks, come on board and help us to do these programs. Help us to do these programs. It takes something from us to do them every day, folks, and we're committed to bringing you this podcast every day of the week, and also the In the Ring program as well. And also we are committing to building out our website, Credible Sources, and we got other things we're working on too. We're bringing back the whip, that program that focuses on what we do in the ambits of the National Assembly with what we do at Parliament, guys. We're bringing that program back shortly. We are so privileged that so many of you joined us today for this broadcast. We couldn't have had it any other way. So privileged that so many of you guys joined us. Selena Fraser, we see you out there. Selena Fraser, we see you. Selena from Canada. Rowena Williams, we see you as well. Shalon Kingston, Tasha, Silette, Coretta Reynolds, Carmen Bailey, Littell Preck, we see you too. Roxanne Aaron, we see you. Rowena Williams, we see you guys. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe wherever you guys are. If it's cold where you're there, stay warm. If it's raining where you're there, guys, stay dry. Thanks for joining us, folks. Enjoy the rest of lunch. It's been a privilege hosting you. Stay safe, guys. Stay safe.